Much of the Davos conversation on AI focuses on commercial opportunities, productivity, and competitiveness, but underneath all of that sits a much deeper question. What happens to human potential when machines can reason, create, and increasingly act at the human level? AI is not just changing employment options, AI is changing how people learn, how careers unfold, and who gets access to these opportunities. So we're joined today, and I'm so excited, straight from Boston, with two exceptional university presidents who are not only waiting on consensus, but actively experimenting with new models that reconnect learning, work, and life in the AI era. So on my far left is Joseph Aoun, am I close? Who's one of the earliest global voices to argue that AI is not just a technology shift, but a structural break in how knowledge is created and applied. An 18-year president of Northeastern University, which is, as any of you not from Boston might know, is now consistently ranked among the top US research universities. And Joseph built a global model for experimental, work-integrated, and lifelong learning. They're famous for the co-op program. And to my immediate left, Melissa Gilliam leads Boston University, also one of the world's most respected research institutions, and ranked among top universities globally for research impact and graduate outcomes. Melissa is a physician, a public health leader, and a university president. That's quite three different roles there. And Melissa brings a deeply human lens to technological change, focused on agency, equity, and trust. Under her leadership, BU has taken a deliberate and bold approach to AI, treating it as a present-day force that must be shaped with rigor, ethics, and inclusion. So, without further ado, Joseph and Melissa, both of you are leading in a time when universities face important choices and unprecedented challenges in terms of AI policies, curriculum, and approaches. We're only on day 3 of the WEF, and there isn't a day that this topic hasn't come up, so I'm so glad you're here to address it. Can you each give us a summary of what you see as most important for universities that want to be AI forward? What do you see as the role of higher education in AI research and in augmenting technical work? Who wants to go first?
So I can talk a little bit about the University of Chicago, Boston University experience. You see where I just came from. So we use the term critical embrace of AI, and by embracing, what we mean is that we think that universities play a critical role in developing the future AI workforce, and our role in education, a critical role in research. And so we've developed something called the AI Development Accelerator. This combines research, teaching, learning, and operations. So we're trying to think about everything from the cost of education to the investing in students and improving the student experience, and how our operations and our pedagogy can better support students, but also training our faculty and our staff members to use AI and to use AI in the classroom. We also believe it's a place of universities are a place to do cutting-edge research, and I'm happy to talk more about these projects and the work that we do. And we're hiring a number, and have for many years hired interdisciplinary faculty who use AI in their work outside of our computer science and engineering. It's a faculty that sits across the entire university. That is, I think, a central role for universities. There are challenges, though, and so I also use the word critical. I think universities are also the place to ask deep questions about the ethics of AI, the challenges of AI, the ways in which AI carries risk, whether it's to our environment or to people or to communities and well-being, and whether it's issues of inequality or issues of some of the challenges. So we use this word, the critical embrace, bringing it into our pedagogy, but also asking, how is this changing the nature of learning, and what are the things that we should consider?
Fantastic. Joseph?
I think that there are two ways of looking at AI. One as a technology, and the other as an entity. And so if you look at technology, and that most of the discussions have been focusing on that, you know, it's fine. It's a tool that we can be used for, you know, to help us personalize education, et cetera, et cetera. But there is another aspect, is to look at AI as an entity. And what do I mean by that? If you look at knowledge that we dispense in universities and the knowledge that has been accumulating for hundreds of years, the knowledge can be divided into three categories. The first is the understanding of the physical world. The second is the understanding of life. And the third is the understanding of human and social interaction. And then the interaction between the three worlds. Now, for the first time, we have a fourth world. This fourth world is AI, and it's an inorganic world, and it's agentic. The reason you know, we are talking about it as a fourth world because it has agency. Therefore, you know, for us in higher education, what we need to look at is how to integrate AI in our learning and in our research. Now, what do I mean by that? Now, AI is becoming very powerful. It's displacing many things that we are doing. And therefore, if you want to sum it up in one sentence, moving forward is a balance in between agentic AI and human agency. This balance is going to be very critical. And this balance is not given once for all. So what we try to do is, you know, in terms of learning, we launched something called, you know, Humanics, which is essentially we're asking every student to understand three literacies: the AI literacy, how AI is working; the data literacy, the product of AI; and then focus on the human literacy. And, you know, the ability to be creative, entrepreneurial, work in teams, to be culturally agile, etc. So that's the first step for learning. The second step is really what you mentioned to experiential education, namely with those long-term internships, because that gives us an edge as humans over AI, because AI doesn't understand the physical world, and also AI doesn't know how to move the knowledge or transpose the knowledge from a domain to another. It's what we call in learning sciences, you know, far transfer. We humans can do that. So if you think about education as a constant balancing act between human agency and AI agency, that's what we need to do in terms of learning. In terms of research, I think AI is an enormously powerful tool, but also it's a displacement tool. You know, we are seeing various companies like Nubar Afeyan was talking today, has a company called Lila, or Laila, I don't know how he pronounces it, and other companies where they are setting up research with AI and robotics. If this is the case, you know, and without a human intervening, if this is the case, we have to ask ourselves in terms of research, what are we going to do that is not going to be displaced by AI? And AI is not good at extrapolation. AI is focused on data. If you go beyond data, then AI cannot match what we do. So it's going to push us as researchers to move at a higher level, where, you know, we are going to be the theoreticians, we're going to do the extrapolations, we're going to think about something that is not only data bound. And so that's the program for higher education in general.
So this is such a helpful framing. I mean, maybe you can help our audience and me as well to understand a little bit where each of your universities is in this transition, using two metrics, which are very rough ones, but one would be how many students who go there are exposed to AI in the classroom, and how many of your professors are trained in AI or use it in their teaching. And then I'd like to hear more profoundly from each of you, what metrics do you think you really should be used, or universities should use, to judge their success during this AI transition? Can we start with you, Melissa? So
Yeah.
the question is percent of professors who teach AI in some way or have been trained to teach AI, students who get exposed through the classroom, and then the metrics that you think should be used.
Sure. So I don't know the numbers. What we have is training program that is available to all of our students to learn about AI. This is developed through our program AIDA, where our students, it's a certificate program that specifically so they have proficiency in AI. Similarly, we have a training program for our faculty and our staff, and that's in person, it's problem solving, and that's around the diffusion of AI, but I don't have an exact number for you. So what does success look like? So you're asking for process measures, right? But I think the outcome is really different. I don't necessarily think that the goal is to teach everybody to use it as a tool. And in many ways, when I look at AI, I also start to think about what are we doing in the humanities? What are we doing in art? And what is the balance of what students are learning? And so I'll give you an analogy from the way that people have trained in medicine, which was, it used to be tons of memorization, tons of rote. You had so much information you had to amass. Then we realized what you have to learn is medicine changes so quickly that you actually have to learn how to think and how to absorb new knowledge and how to translate it and implement it. And I think that's the type of student that we need to produce. The student who, the only thing that is certain now is that it will be rapidly changing. And so we need students who have the resilience to work in this rapidly changing moment. But I think another measure of success, right, is what we shouldn't be doing, which is we shouldn't ignore the human factors, and we can talk more about that. And we shouldn't ignore the fact that we also want our students to learn how to write literature and to participate in music and to think critically and all of these other things. So some of those measures, I think, are that they don't.
Right, you don't want all your graduates to be just AI specialists. Yeah. Joseph, what would you say? Do you have those metrics?
Look, first of all, I agree with Melissa, and the issue is not the students. The issue is the faculty and the staff, because the students are AI natives. They know AI, they use AI. So, what we have done is what Melissa was mentioning. Every student, every faculty, every staff has access to badges, has access to certificates, etc. And the students are far ahead. I'm talking about the students as a whole. Now, we as a university in general, as a university system, I'm not talking about Northeastern, our approach to AI has not been felicitous, because what we did is we became protectionist. And we said, oh, you're cheating if you're using AI. Whereas we didn't reassess what we do. So for instance, what does it mean to cheat? It means that you take the essay from an LLM model and that's it. The students now are at the second stage. They realize that all the students have access to LLM, and therefore they cannot distinguish and differentiate themselves by doing that. But also we as faculty have to reassess the way we are testing. Because, instead of saying this is cheating, we can very well say, I'm going to give you, you are a student, I'm going to give you 2 essays, one generated by Gemini, the other generated by Claude, or whoever, or whatever, and then look at the gaps, look at the hallucinations, and then now, based on that, write your own essays, your own essay. That's a different approach. So what I'm saying is that we as faculty will have to rethink our approach the same thing happened with the internet. Now, there is another aspect here that I want also to stress, and Melissa mentioned that, is that we have many people focusing on AI, but also the integration of AI with other disciplines is now the key, with physics, with English, with history, etc. And that's what all the universities are doing. But it's creating another dilemma. AI is going to become like electricity. Everybody is going to use it. Therefore, you cannot say, as a university, I'm using AI, because you don't say, as a university, I'm using electricity. So therefore, for us, namely in higher education, the opportunity is to try to see how we can differentiate ourselves in the use of AI.
I understand that, but I think if you're a student trying to figure out where to go or a parent, it's very hard when you read almost any university. They say something sort of similar to what the two of you are saying. So how do you think, Joseph, that a parent trying to figure out which university has thought this through, are there any metrics to use or ratings that you trust?
Sorry, go ahead. Melissa wanted
No,
to
I
say
was just
something.
going to say, I think eventually it becomes a non-issue, right? People are adopting these technologies in high school. They're going to come, and I mean, now we have to. We're at this kind of cusp, but at some point, they really will come to us already knowing all about AI.
For the parents, I think and for the students, it's very simple. You're asking what is the signaling effect? The signaling effect, if the university not only is practicing it, but considers that as a game changer, and therefore, for instance, look at the strategic plan of the university, look at the speeches that during orientation, look at what the president is saying, what the deans are saying, what everybody is saying, and then you have a sense. There is a very clear signaling effect that we do constantly with prospective parents and students. It's the same, it applies here too.
But I do think the issue for parents is going to be, will my child get a job after going to your university, right?
And what will that job be?
I couldn't agree more.
And are you thinking about it in this AI era?
And that's where I think the demand is. And that is also something more than a signaling. That's where we have the data, where universities have the data. Where are we placing them? Are they being placed in their majors, etc.? Yeah, absolutely.
So I want to move beyond this immediate question, which we could easily spend a day on, but like any of the imagination and action, you get a rich topic and less than 30 minutes to assess it. But Joseph, you wrote a very powerful paper called Higher Education: A Frayed Compact, in which you describe that the social compact that sustains university, which has been true for most of our generations, where there's public support in exchange for public benefit, that it's becoming frayed, it's sort of coming apart. And you explain the urgency, saying that if we don't change higher education, it may end up on life support. Can you say a little bit more about how we got here and spell out the impact of the three forces that are coming together to create this urgency?
Very quickly, and Melissa hasn't seen it, so I'm going to spare her here with respect to that. But we in the United States, we function in terms based on a social compact. We're both private universities, and public universities are the same. Namely, society is telling us, because you are a public good, in terms of education, educating the citizens and the leaders, and because of the research, you have privileges. We're giving you support in terms of research, we're giving you support in terms of financial aid, etc. And based on that, they expect some results. Okay, some concrete results. What has happened recently is people are questioning us, questioning what we are providing. Are we being, are we indoctrinating our students? Are we being too liberal? Are we skewing our research in different dimensions, etc.? So you are seeing people, especially in Silicon Valley, attacking universities very ferociously and saying this has to be upended completely, the system. Now, this, at the same time, when you look at the public opinion, 30% of people in the United States feel that, have a positive approach to us, to higher education. It moved up now to 46% because we were hit hard. And so people said, enough, it's enough. Now, what do we need to do? We need to regain this trust. We need to regain this trust. Melissa mentioned one. People, when they send their children to a university, and the students themselves, they want results. Are we getting jobs after that? If, that's part of the social compact. Are you going to be able to help me? Because reinvention and all becoming obsolete, are you going to be there for me? And in what form, etc. And so there are ways, for us to regain this trust. And that's that's an opportunity. We can expand more on that, but we don't have much time.
I love that. And Melissa, I mean, without reference to the article, I mean, do you share this sense? You're newer in your role, but you also have a medical background. So there's also an attack on science that was just described next door. Where do you feel this attack is coming from, and where do you think we are in this battle?
Sure. So I've dealt with the issue of mistrust for a very long time because, as you know, there's a huge issue of medical mistrust, the mistrust in science, the mistrust in public health. And I think we also have to take into account the fact that we are living in the wake of a global pandemic. And so if you look at all institutions, the mistrust in formal institutions is at an all-time high. It has implications for AI because as you start to think about the risk of growing inequality with AI and the potential for the have and have-nots or job displacement, again, you exacerbate issues of mistrust. If you look at, for example, medicine, it's a great analogy because in medicine you say, this is altruistic, we are here to provide healthcare, we're here for the greater good. But the mistrust was the lack of listening, the lack of understanding that when you come into my office, your experience is not the same as another person. And we've done the same thing in higher education. We've had this monolithic mental model of what it was to be a student, rather than meeting students where they are, and then thinking that there's potential out there that is absolutely unrealized because we focus more on who we keep out. We're actually graded on how exclusive we are. We focus more on who we keep out than who we keep in. It means that there's an entire population of people who do not have access to education at a time when we've become knowledge workers, and that means people do not have access to jobs and resources. Prior to Boston University, I lived in Ohio, which is a state where there are rural populations that are their health status, all of the diseases of despair that Ann Case has described so well, are disproportionately affecting those communities. And what we do in healthcare, what we do with major institutions, what we're doing with science alienated people. And it was driven home by the pandemic, where we lost so many lives of the people who had the least access to institutions and resources. So I'm expanding this so we can understand that this is about institutions, but I think there are also lessons to be learned lest we exacerbate inequalities as we go through this next revolution of AI.
Let me ask both of you as innovators, this is the thing I love about Davos is that it's such a curious audience. Where do you look to see the future of what education will look like a decade from now? I mean, are you impressed by the ASU online world? Are you thinking that it will be much more sort of embedded co-op system? I mean, paint us a picture, both of you. We'll start with Joseph.
We'll start with Melissa.
No,
That's a difficult question. It's for her.
We love difficult questions.
I think you cannot look at innovations in higher education and where things are going only by looking at the United States. For instance, I mean, Melissa mentioned that our system is based on exclusion. We brag that we receive thousands of applications, and what do? We reject them. Why? Because we have a residential system, and we don't have enough beds, and therefore we're restricted, and then we have students who were terrific, and you say no to. So
Where would you look?
Where I would look at places precisely where the demand is enormous. India has now, various attempts by NGOs, essentially not government, by NGOs trying to see how they can reach people and give them opportunities, educational opportunities. I'm looking also at the private sector. Let me give you something that is also an issue for us, and it's a problem. You have places like Google, like Meta, like Microsoft. They said a degree is meaningless. Okay, therefore, what are they doing? They are going and recruiting students with, regardless of the degree or with no degree at all, and at the same time building their own educational operations. Every time they build an educational operation, it's not their core competence. It's an indictment of what we do. Therefore, the question becomes, why are they doing that? What isn't being met? Now, in the United States, finally, we have a situation where we are aging. Everybody is aging except people in this room. And therefore, we have less students going to college. So that's an issue. At the same time, we have an enormous demand for people to reskill themselves, upskill themselves, and reinvent themselves. Now, higher education looked at it as a second-class operation. Now, if the demand is there, that's another opportunity. So higher education is extremely well positioned in the AI age where everybody is becoming obsolete to be the place where you can replenish, you can reinvent yourself. That's how we are looking at it.
I love that. And Melissa, where do you go to look?
Well, similarly, I've been in Dubai and Saudi Arabia and talking to people who are starting private, for-profit schools at scale and thinking thinking about the global South and expanding education. But what I would say is we are really bad at predicting the future. We have no crystal ball, and if we think of innovation as being linear and straightforward, we're wrong. It is a pendulum swing. And so at the same time we're seeing so much AI, I'm also watching students who are begging to be in community. So I think there is such a role for residential life because we are at this moment, so I'm going to talk about undergraduate education, but we are at we meet people at this key developmental moment where they're practicing and learning new social skills and working in different ways. If we lose the sense of humanity, of community, and all of these things that our fairly slowly evolving brains need to be human, then we've lost something. So I'm always arguing for this embrace of technology and curiosity and innovation, but this remembering what it is to be human. And these lessons keep coming home because at the same time we deal with loneliness and anxiety and depression, and there is that correlation to the more that we get onto our phones. So I want us to think about those things as well.
Thank you so much, Melissa and Joseph. I think you've raised so many issues. It's very clear that what's on your plate and agendas have so much more than just technology, but human potential, community, lifelong learning. So we appreciate you sharing your wisdom with us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Alison, and great to be with you.